Your name. All heaven and the earth praise. You are great. You are worthy. Worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heaven and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. Worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. I'll heaven your name. You are great. Magnify your name. To the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. On heaven will proclaim your grace. Awesome. Are great. You are worthy. Worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heaven and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. I'll magnify your name. All heaven and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. Worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heaven and the earth, your grace. You are awesome. Are great. You are worthy. Magnify your name. All heaven and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. Worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. And the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace. You are awesome. You are great. You are worthy. And worthy to be praised. I'll magnify your name. All heavens and the earth will proclaim your grace.
His word. Come on, praise him. He's worthy of all praise. You're worthy of all praise. You're worthy of all esteem. You are worthy, and we appreciate you for inviting us into this lifestyle, for showing us our way of life. We appreciate him. I appreciate him. Yes. For everything that he does and everything that he continues to do. And I have great expectation of what he is going to do and what he's going to say on this young. We're going to turn our attention to Yahush, the son of Nun, chapter 1, and we're going to read verse 7, and we're going to recite verse 8. And it is so.
And it is so.
Excuse me. Only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I have tailored it to fit our time, a personal confession. Let us recite this together. I will not let the scroll of the Torah
I will not let the scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth,
depart out of my mouth,
but I shall meditate in it,
but I shall meditate in it,
Yom and Layla,
Yom and Layla,
that I may observe to do
that I may observe to do
according to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
But then I shall make my way prosperous
And then I shall make my way prosperous,
and act wisely.
and act wisely,
And act wisely.
and act wisely,
Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you shall act wisely.
and you shall act wisely,
Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, you shall act wisely.
and you shall act wisely.
Take your hand, place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Make him feel it. I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
I'm determined. I refuse to let somebody else's foolishness remove me from that place of purpose and wisdom. We got to learn how not to let people pull us from that place that Yahuwah has called us to be. He called us to be a people above all people, a people above all nations. And we can't be that people if we are foolish.
Sorry.
And I just refuse to let other people's foolishness and ignorance demote me from doing and following out my purpose in Abba Yahuwah. And we have to be determined in that same manner to not let people do that. That means you have to basically have a standard, and you have to build a standard around you, so people can't just come with their foolishness and cause you to be demoted by their actions.
That's right.
We can't engage in foolishness. You know, we have to be careful. Look, I look at it like this. Heavyweight fighters don't fight lightweight fighters because they know it's not a fair match. And because we know we're champions and we're heavyweight fighters, we in the top, you know, we had to do anything. We up there with Ali. So we ain't trying to come down, you know, and so it's important we understand that you can't let people demote you. So we got to maintain it, and we have to have a basis for our stand, and it is the Torah.
Yes.
It is the Torah. And so we appreciate Abba Yahuwah for that. Mishlei 15:8, the sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination, hateful, and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yahuwah, but the prayer of the upright, it is his delight. If we spend more time praying, we would spend less time fighting and bickering.
Right.
We would. We would spend more time praying. He would tell us when to engage and when to not engage. Romaiah 14:17-18, for the kingdom of Yahuwah is not meat and drink, but uprightness and shalom and joy in the Ruach Kodesh. For in these things serve Yahush, he is acceptable to Yahuwah and approved of men. And it is so.
And it is so.
Excuse me. Ayah 33:4, the Ruach Kodesh of Yahuwah hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Somebody say he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Tehillim 34:15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears are open unto our cry. Verse 17, the righteous cry, and Yahuwah heareth and delivereth them out of all their troubles. Masa 1:8, but we shall receive power after that, the Ruach Kodesh shall come upon us, and we shall be witnesses unto him both in Jerusalem and all Judea and Shamar and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And when we cease from bickering and fussing, we'll be more of a witness.
Right.
He didn't call us and fill us with the Ruach Kodesh to be to argue and fight with folk. He filled us so that we would be a witness.
That's right.
And so it's important we understand that. Tehillim 1:1, Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the instructions of Abba Yahuwah, and he doth meditate upon it, and it is so.
And it is so.
Ibram 11:6, but without belief it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we want to turn our attention to Yehukanan, Aleph 5. And then I want to read the other one too. I don't want to not read that one because it's important too. Because as I said before, many people are reading and misinterpreting the writings because everybody feels like they are a teacher. But if you do your research and you study, the reason why many people didn't have what we have today is because it was not for everybody to have in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, even when you read in the very beginning, when Yahuwah gave the instructions, He gave them to the people, but everybody didn't have a legal copy. The only ones that had it were who? The priests, the officials, and those that were designated to be teachers. Everybody was not a teacher in Yasharal. And everybody is not a teacher now in Yasharal, contrary to popular belief. And so it's important that we understand that. That's why people always want to come run and tell them about what not to do when they need to sit down and go read and get a greater understanding instead of always trying to jump and be antagonistic with folk. It's important in these final days that we use wisdom. Very important. Yehukin and Aleph 2:5-6 says, but whoever keeps his Torah, truly the Ahab of Yahuwah is perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. He who says he abides in him ought himself also to walk just as he walked. How can you walk as he walked if you don't know what he did and how he did it? That's important for us to understand. Yehukin and Aleph 5:3-14. And it says, for this is the Ahab for Yahuwah. This is the Ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not difficult. Because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has overcome the world, our belief. So it's important that we understand if you are of Yahuwah, you've overcome this world and its system. And watch this, and the rabbinical system that is parallel to it. That's right. We've learned to overcome these things by our belief that Yahuwah has not brought us this far and given us access to his son, the Torah made flesh, for us to come to a place to abort and to forfeit what he's given us. It's important that we understand that. Who is the one who overcomes the world? But he that believes that Yahushua is the son of Yahuwah. You can't overcome if you don't have him in your life. That's right. And anybody knows anything about games and knows about sports. If you don't have enough of players, what? You forfeit the game. Right. You have to have a certain amount of players on the team. Let me tell you something. We have to have the certain amount of players on our team. And I'm not talking about just a whole lot of flesh. I'm talking about the support system and team that Yahuwah has set in place for us to be overcomers, more than overcomers. Right. And that's Yahush, first and foremost, which is his son. Then the Ruach Kodesh, which is his voice. Are y'all hearing me? Yes. Important that we have all of these ingredients. Without the team, you forfeit the life game. That's right. We forfeit it. And I don't know about you. I don't want to forfeit this. No, it's not a game. But the thing of it is understanding there has to be the right amount of people on the team. That's right. And with the absence of just one, that makes an imbalance. And therefore, you forfeit your way. You forfeit your life. So it's important that we understand. Don't let the enemy cause you to forfeit your life because of erroneous teachings. And it is so. Excuse me. This is the one that came by water and blood, Yahush Mashiach. Not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach that bears witness, because the Ruach is the truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood, and the three are in agreement. They are in agreement. Now watch this. If they are in agreement, that means that agreement has to be inside of you to make you in agreement. Without it, there'll be no agreement. If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is greater. Because this is the witness of Yahuwah, which he has witnessed concerning his son. The one who believes in the son of Yahuwah has the witness in himself. The one who does not believe Yahuwah has made him a liar, because he has not believed the witness that Yahuwah has son. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life. And this life is in his son. He who possesses the son possesses a life. He who does not possess the son of Yahuwah does not possess life. And let me tell you something. Just because you see the word he does not mean that we are not included in that. That's right. Remember when he delivered Yasharal out of Mitzrayim, he delivered what? The whole nation. He didn't leave the women and children. Now watch this. Pharaoh wanted him to leave the children and the women. He said, and you go, you and the men go and worship. And Yahuwah said, not so, all of you will come out. So if we all have been delivered out of something, then we have to be delivered into something in order for us to have eternal life.
Right.
Don't fall for that lie. It's just about the men. That's not so. If you don't believe in Yahushua as a woman, guess what? There's a hell's fire waiting on you too. You have to answer to Yahuwah for your own actions and belief.
That's right.
And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life, and this life is his Son. He who possesses the Son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. Excuse me. I have given this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. Now listen once again. I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. So for those that are not believers, it's not for you.
That's right.
So we can't keep pushing it on people. Now, so that you possess everlasting life, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. And this is the boldness that we have in him. Somebody say in him.
In him.
That if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. Now watch this. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petition that we have asked of him.
That's right.
And when you're asking him for the truth, then don't turn around and fight him when he presents it to you.
That's right.
Just because it seems like you are not used to it. Just because you, or even if I'm not used to it, doesn't mean it's wrong if we're asking him to show us the truth.
That's right.
Help us out, Yahuwah. And it is so.
And it is so.
Excuse me. And it is so. Let us have another song, please. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy, and all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment, hope for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment, hope for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment, hope for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment, hope for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy.
Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. All that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy. And all that's great and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment. Oh, for all I do. Yahuwah, you're the center of my joy.
Come on, Baruch. Baruch him. gathered here once again on this Yom, our Shabbat, a time of rest, a time of commemoration and celebration. At this time, we want to do our affirmations, then our declaration, and then we want to seal our praise, prayer, and worship. Repeat with me. I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
That life is the Torah of Yasharal.
That life is the Torah of Yasharal.
I purpose to walk in the Torah,
I purpose to walk in the Torah
of life.
the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge,
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's ahab,
Yahuwah's ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power,
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is leading me.
He is leading me.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach Kodesh of Yahuwah
The Ruach Kodesh of Yahuwah
in me is leading me.
in me is leading me.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll walk in the Torah.
I'll walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush,
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Our declaration, also our prayer. Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
in the name of Yahush,
in the name of Yahush,
our Mashiach,
our Mashiach,
we subdue ignorance
we subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this
of
knowledge
Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
salvation,
salvation,
and deliverance.
and deliverance.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people, Yasharal.
Yasharal.
We unite,
We unite
not to fight,
not to fight,
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
And it is so.
I declare a time of rest, shalom, and truth in Yahuwah through Yahush al Mashiach. And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us bow before our King and let us recite this. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation
and the deliberation
of my heart
of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
One more time. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable
be desirable
before you,
before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 14. And it is so.
And it is so.
You may be seated in His presence. Once again, I pray that everyone, Layla was full of shalom, and that your young is going better than well, because you are alive, we're alive, and we're here to celebrate a time of rest and to commemorate that awesome rest through Yahuwah, through His Son, Yahushua. Our Mashiach. I want to say Torah for those of you that are with us, joining in on this Yom to celebrate, commemorate, and also study with us. A time that we rest our physical man and even our mental status, but it's a time that we remain lubricated and we remain open to hear the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. This is one thing that we never cease from, and that is learning His instructions for our lives. And so, as we begin, we want to turn our attention to Bereshit chapter 2, as we began on Layla with chapter 1. And our theme this Shabbat is in the beginning. In the beginning, excuse me, in the beginning. And as we have learned that it's in the beginning of. And we learned on last Layla that the earth was created for us to fulfill the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. Very important for us to understand. He didn't create the earth and then just throw us on it. He created the earth so that we could live on it to carry out his instructions for our lives. And in chapter 1, we see so many great things that have been dealt with and spoken about as he gave the instructions and how he created everything and how he, before he could place his seal of approval and say that it was great, it had to be finished. Right. And so it's important that we understand that we are still a work in progress. We are not finished. If we were finished, we wouldn't be in the land of our enemies, and we wouldn't still be in the state we're in. We would be at home, maxing and relaxing, not in the way that we think of as today, but we wouldn't be under the government and the rulership that we are in the place that we are now. But it's important we understand that we are still a work in progress. Mm-hmm. And so it is important that we never give up on what he's given unto us to develop us and to make us to become all that he's called us to be. And so as we learn and how he put things together, it's very important that we understand from Hadam and Ahawa, him calling them to be fruitful and multiply and giving them dominion. You have to understand, he didn't just give the man dominion, he gave them dominion. Right. He continued the whole time. The conversation never stopped. There were no footnotes added. There were no addendums added. There were no what you call it when you not just the addendum, but there was no amendments added. These things came later on when man began to not just man, but when certain men began to put their hands on the writings, where they were able to manipulate and change the structure and order of Abba Yahuwah. So it's important that we understand and we read with an understanding, and we listen with an understanding ear. All right. Excuse me. These things. And so to understand, when he said, and let them have dominion, he was not talking about the animals. He was talking about Hadam and Ahawa. Mm-hmm. Them. You have to understand, it is important that we understand that he created us in the image of him. That's right. He created us. He created them, meaning that they were separate, and he knew and understood the chemistry and the makeup of each one. That's right. Okay. There's a lot of things that I question, even concerning certain things that have been put out there. And so it's important that we understand his voice, and we understand the beginning and the onset of the structure of the human or life. Are you understanding me? Yes. The race, humanity, when he created us. It's important that we understand. Very important that we understand this. But when he said dominion, I want to just read this as we turn our attention to chapter 2. And it is weird. The Hebrew connects both dominion, derived from radah, and descent, derived from yarad. When man is worthy, he has dominion over the animal kingdom. When he is not, he descends below their level, and the animals rule over him, not over just him, but over them. And over all the earth, to be understood literally of man's power to uproot, dig, and extract metals. This is why even in man's fallen state and away from Abba Yahuwah, there are certain things that still can be done. We see it throughout history and even in our present time. Sure. There are certain things that are still able to be done, but it's important that we understand that as we go back through the creation story, that we put ourselves in that creation. And I'm not just saying, well, after, we're not just talking about after the fall, we're talking about before the fall. Okay. Understanding everything that was put in place. Because you have to understand, Yahuwah is recovering us. He's restoring us. And then the last and final thing is he is going to revive us
Right.
as a people. That revival is for us as a nation and not just for 2 or 3 or 4 people.
That's right.
So it's important that we understand the process that takes place in the process that we are in. And so as he structured and gave them this ability, he told them, now you be fruitful and you multiply. But you have to understand, they were to be fruitful and multiply their state that they were in before they had fallen. So now we're going to go into chapter 2, and we're going to see some of the things that transpired to make these things happen. Now, as we read, once again, you have to understand when you're reading, you have to read with an open ruach, and you have to listen, and you have to be able to discern and see when there is a change that is taking place. And the reason I'm saying this is because you have to understand syncretism. Not just syncretism, but you got to understand also when people take something out and place something in there, an amendment or an addendum to change the whole structure. Because from the very beginning, Abba Yahuwah created them. And creating them means he created a unit to do something specific and special in the beginning. And this is why we have to be restored first and foremost in our relationships with one another.
Right.
And first it begins with the mishpachah. It begins with the ish and the isha, the isha and the ish. Excuse me. It has to be. Because until restoration is brought in the forefront of the home, then what example do we have? Now, somebody would say, well, we have the example of Yahush and him ahabing the congregation. Absolutely. And I know in no ways minimize that. But you have to understand, he got the example from the beginning. That's right. So it is important that we understand as we go back through creation, the story of creation, that we look at it and we dig through it and we look at it with an open heart and we begin to see it from the eyes of truth. Yes. And not with stained glass or stained glasses. It's important that we understand as he formed them in shape, color, and height is important. Everything takes shape. And it's important that we see it from truth, because if we don't see it from truth, we'll still be struggling with trying to understand where we are and what's going on. And we can't do that. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right, let's begin with chapter 2, please. Let's do 7.
Excuse me.
Thus the Shemayim and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And Yahuwah ceased from all work in the 7th day, because it was appointed as Yom Shabbat, ceasing from all labor.
Mm-hmm.
And Yahuwah blessed the 7th day and set it apart, calling it Yom Shabbat, because that in it he had ceased from all his work which power had created, and that needed to be made. These are the generations of the Shemayim and of the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahuwah power made all the earth and the Shemayim. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for Yahuwah power had not caused it to rain upon the earth, for there was no human to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And Yahuwah power formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. And it is so.
And it is so. Now let's look at this. Very interesting. Excuse me. I'm gonna read this from two places, because I'm looking at 3 different three different, I don't want to say Bibles, but 3 different interpretations. Thank you. 3 different interpretations. And so when we began to look at this, this is just, like I said, it's just phenomenal to me how we could see this. First, when we look at verse 1, all the host of them. The host of earth is man, animal, and plant life. That of the Shemayim are the luminaries. It also hints at the creation of the Malach and the soul of man, both of which are of the host of Shemayim. So when we look at these things, and as he rested on this day. You have to understand the Shabbat is the day of the week that is not equal to any other day. It is the highest day of the week. And it is not just a typical day. It is not a day that we just take, excuse me, and toss it around as if it has no meaning. It is not just a day for us to even do our what we would consider casual rest. As we talked on Layla, that when it is a time of rest, that means your mind has to rest. That means everything has to rest, because you have to understand. We read about the Shabbat in verse 2 when it is first mentioned, because this is a time that Abiyah will cease from all his labor. He himself ceased from doing what he was doing. Now, many would say, because I've heard different renderings, that he only ceased from creation, but he went on to do. Show me what book did you get that gives you that insight to what else he continued to do. I have learned, if it's not there, don't add. Don't try to get into a mind that you are not capable to comprehend.
Right.
Are y'all following me? So it's important that we not add, and we definitely do not take away. But this is the first time that is mentioned. Now, listen to this. I read this and I want to read this to you. Now, this is a little lengthier. The very first mention of the word Shabbat leads Christians to reason that it is for just, I'm going to read this, the Jewish people, which we know meaning Yehuda. This is, therefore, they decide that we do not have to keep the Shabbat. Nowhere does Yahuwah issue such a command telling us that only the tribe of Yehuda is to keep the Shabbat. The premise itself is built on a straw man argument, because when the term Jewish is used, this is only addressing one tribe of Yasharal. What most do not know is that 11 of the tribes of Yasharal were not Yehuda. You had Gad, Dan, you had Naphtali. You had all these other tribes. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And they were all responsible for keeping the Shabbat. So when we start segregating, and I understand what I'm saying, in this respect, we miss it. Because we only believe that it's for Yehuda, but it's not. It's for all of the tribes. This understanding is that the Roman Catholic changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day. However, this is not true. Here is a text showing us that just the Catholic Cardinal Gibbons, in Belief of Our Fathers, this is the name of the book, page 111, said, you may read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation and you will not find a single line authorizing the sanctification of Sunday or the first day. The scriptures enforce the religious observance of the seventh day, which we, the Roman Catholic Church, never sanctified. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
In other words, he's basically saying, we didn't change it, we didn't sanctify that, but we know they did. Now, he may not have done it. Are you following me?
Yes.
He didn't do it. But there were those in the church that did it. But you have to understand also with that, this is why you have many people that will constantly fight it and say the Roman church had nothing to do with it. But yes, they did. Because when you began to look at Constantine. When you begin to look at Constantine is the one who helped to fortify it. But you also have to understand it wasn't just Constantine. It was also Eusebius. He was also one of the founding Catholic fathers that helped to make these changes. Right. So when you start looking at those that were in position, they're the ones to help institute and usher in these changes. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, the first person known throughout historical evidence to reject the Shabbat and worship away from it was Marcion of Sinope. After which, the second recorded case of usurping the authority of Jerusalem bishop was Ignatius, popularly known as Saint Ignatius, who annulled, the Sabbath to Sunday worship. Now, and once again, it's important that we understand that not only did he do it, but Constantine is the one who legalized it. He is the one that pushed the envelope and basically put the seal of approval to make these changes. So it's important that we understand, once again, we're looking at the different renderings, but when it's all said and done, we know that this was changed. Now, the idea here is not that Yahuwah needed rest, but that he seeks from all creative work. This picture shows of the future redemptive work. In the first Sabbath, we ultimately see a remez, hint of the day of tabernacle, when the Mashiach returns. So once again, we are seeing that it's important that it's showing us. Once again, you have to look at the creative story. It shows us many of things. You have the four renderings or the four ways to interpret the writings. You have the Peshat, the Remez, the Sod, and the Drach. Maybe not in that order, but you have them. And each one of them gives us significance in the writing. If you don't understand if it is a hint, if you don't understand if it is literal right then and there, or if it is futuristic, unless you understand how to break it up, according to Timotheus, when he tells us, study to show thyself approved unto Abba Yahuwah, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word or the Torah of truth. Are you hearing me? It's important that we understand doing what? Instead of dividing, we'll find ourselves subtracting. Yes. And if you subtract from the writings, you're going to find yourself on the losing end. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we understand these things. I pray that you all follow me. Once again, I'm going to look fun at some of you exactly where it is. Excuse me. Bear with me as I find this. Ta-da. Excuse me, y'all. All right. It's 2 and 15. Do your utmost to present yourselves approved to Yahuwah, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. That means there is a wrong way. That's the way it renders it here in the Netzadim version, BYNV. So it's important that we look at that we show ourselves approved. We study to show ourselves approved unto Abba Yahuwah, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing. In other words, rightfully handling the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. Because if you don't rightfully handle it, that means you can do what? Wrongfully handle it.
That's right.
And this is what causes many of people to stray from what is taking place and what's going on. Now, let me finish that thought once again. It's important that we understand that it was given unto us, the children of Yasharal, to keep.
That's right.
We ought to be the example to the other nations of how it is supposed to be done. And so it is very important that we find that way and we walk therein and we keep it.
Yes.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, as we continue to read, on the seventh Yom, Yahuwah finished his work in the very moment which marked the completion of the 6th day, so that as he finished, the 7th began. Now, excuse me, the world still lacked rest. By making the 7th Yom a Yom of rest, he completed his creation, and thus, in very truth, he finished his work on the 7th Yom. Finishing work is note that the same as doing work, but is the equivalent of doing naught. Hence, scripture states that he did not work on the 7th day, but rested thereon. So in other words, he completed it, so he did not do anything else. This is why it's important that we understand we have 6 days to work. And we are to do the best to work those 6 days. And on that 7th, we ought to rest. And no work is to be done. This is one of the things that is so challenging, because we try to define work as going on a man's job, punching a time clock. But you have to understand, work is anything that exerts energy.
That's right.
Now, somebody will say, well, when you get up, you exert energy. Well, it's a process. You have to. That's not work, though. Right. And it is a type of work, but it is not a work of servitude.
Yeah.
It is a work. When you move your arms, you're exerting energy.
Yes.
But when you begin to do other things outside that, that is work. We're not to buy. We're not to sell. We're not to do any of those things. So it's important that we understand what is taking place here. And like I said, he didn't have to rest, but this was also to show us future events, that there will be a time that we would rest from all our labors, servitude labors. Are you following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we are able to put those things together. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
He baruched it, in respect of the manna, a double portion of which fell on the 6th Yom in preparation for the Shabbat, and hallowed it in the respect of the manna which did not fall on the Shabbat at all. And we can see that in Shema 16 and 22. The verse is accordingly written in anticipation, of the future. The Baruch is that the Shabbat gives man added physical and spiritual strength, and it was hallowed by having no work done on that Yom. The former, or the Baruch, is true only of those who believe in the sanctity of the Shabbat. So it's important that we understand that we believe the purpose of the Shabbat. Once again, we should never come into something basically assuming because we see other people do it. It's important that we understand. That we understand when coming into truth, before we adopt somebody else's habits and ways, let's make sure their habits and ways are instituted in the writings. Are you following?
Yes.
Because once again, it is a day that we do no laborious work. We rest, we cease from that time. Right. And so we believe this, and therefore on our times of Shabbat, when we come out, we ought to be more energized. We ought to be more inspired. We ought to be more adamant about fulfilling the things of Abba Yahuwah. Watch this, in 6 days. That's right. So on the 7th day, we're able to experience his power, his presence in an unrestricted manner, because we believe that this day is significant and it is above every other day. It's important that we understand these things.
Yes.
And it is so.
Indeed so.
Now, which Yahuwah in creating had made. The literal translation is which Yahuwah created to do or make. The work which there was still to do on the seventh day was done on the sixth Yom. The work which Yahuwah had created with the power to reproduce or to make itself. Excuse me. Created always refers to Christo or Crito, ex nihilo, and Asha, made, to the shaping of existing matter, and accordingly renders he rested from all his work, that is matter, which Yahuwah had created ex nihilo, to make from it the things which were made in the sixth Yom. This accords with the view that everything was potentially created on the first Yom. So you have to understand, he didn't just get to the sixth Yom and then say, well, I'm tired, shoot, the seventh, I'm going to go ahead on and close it up. I'm going to shut it down on the seventh. No, you have to understand, this was already preordained in his actions and in his heart before he got to the seventh Yom. That meant that he did all this. This is why we call the sixth Yom what? The day of what?
Preparation.
The day of preparation. Because we know the day that follows is our Shabbat, and we will rest on this day.
That's right.
We will rest from foolishness. We will rest from folly. We will rest from those things. Are you following me?
Yes.
Because we've handled them the first day to the sixth day. And this is also something those of us that like to be antagonistic and like to go and start arguments, you have to understand you're breaking the Shabbat.
That's right.
Because you're exerting energy for something that is not to be even contended with.
That's right.
It's supposed to hold off until you either deal with it on the sixth day or you deal with it on the first day. It's important that we understand that. Once again, we have to see the framework and the structure of our lives through this. If we don't, then guess what happens? We continue to follow the pattern and that of somebody else. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to emulate people, but I'm saying it is wrong to emulate that what is wrong. And just because many people do it and it's been done for a long time doesn't make it right.
Yes. That's right.
Very important for us to understand that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. Let us read.
Starting at verse 8.
Read verse 7 again.
Then Yahuwah formed the man out of the dust from the ground and breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, and the man became a living being. Yahuwah power planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he placed the man he had formed. Yahuwah caused to grow out of the ground every tree pleasing in appearance and great for food, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden, as well as the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river went out from Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became the source of 4 rivers. The name of the first is Pishon, which flows to the entire land of Havi, where there is gold, and gold from that land is pure. Bdellium and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is Gihon, which flows to the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris, which runs east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. Yahuwah power took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and watch over it. And Yahuwah power commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree of the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For the day on which you eat it, you will certainly die. Then Yahuwah said, it is not great for the man to be alone. I will make a helper as his complement. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Now, it's important that we understand, once again, reading and understanding, reading with an understanding, not adding, not taking away, but reading with understanding.
That's right.
Now, we read verse 7. Now let's look at verse 6. There went up a mist from the earth. On the Yom that he ordered their eternal existence, a mist ascended from which there came rain and dew, the necessary prerequisites of their continuity.
Mhm.
And so it's important that we understand that Yahuwah always has a plan. And you have to understand, man was not a second thought or an afterthought. He was a part of the plan. He is the plan. Are you following me?
Yes.
We are the plan. And so it's important. Now, when we look at form, the double yod, excuse me, with which the verb is written, denotes a double forming, once for this world and once for the resurrection. The meaning is that man was endowed with the potentiality of resurrection after he had died or expired. So one thing is important. When Yahuwah created Hadam and even Ahawa, he knew there was an expectancy still upon their lives.
That's right.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
He knew this. Now, one of the things that's important to understand is that no matter what, we still see that Hadam ended up what? Dying.
That's right.
Many times we get in our mind that because they were created in the garden, that they had that they were never going to expire.
Mhm.
Nowhere does it ever say that. It does not say that at all. You have to understand, to tend something, in other words, let me put it in this manner. They were alive and they needed to maintain life, but also death was a process, but not as we see it today.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because that meant if you eat something, you gonna take it in and you gotta digest it. And that means if you digest it and you take it in, you're gonna take what you need and you're gonna pass what you don't. Meaning that's what? Dead. That's waste. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So you have to understand, to tend means that these things needed to be pruned. They needed to be taken care of. Meaning that what? The leaves would expire, or there would be something that would cause them to have to be taken care of so things would not become disarrayed.
Mhm.
Am I making sense?
Yes.
Very important for us to see this and understand this, especially from this perspective, because many times we say, well, he died. Now you have to understand when I say this, because many people, I don't want you to take this wrong. When they say, well, Hadam died because he ate the fruit. Yes, he did, because he was disobedient. But watch this. We can look at it even as we look at Moshe. Moshe lived to be 123 years of age. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
He lived a long, ripe age, and then he expired. He expired.
That's right.
Yes.
It's important for us to understand that Yahuwah has a plan and he has a way. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And we can't come in and change that because we think, or we've heard, or even we've tried to interpret it in another manner.
Mhm.
Are you following me?
Yes.
But does that mean that we would stay in that state? No.
That's right.
But we would come what? Forth with a new body, a new way about resurrection.
That's right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important that we see these things and that we get a greater understanding of what's taking place here. Because once again, we knew Hadam was the beginning, and Ahawa had a part in a structure that Abba Yahuwah was bringing forth. And we know the enemy got in, and we're going to read that, and basically thwarted that. So it's important that we continue to read. So somebody will say, are you saying that death was a part of life? Absolutely. But not in the manner that we see it in this light.
Yes.
Because you have to understand, in order to go to the next level, there's something that has to be shed.
That's right.
Very important for us to understand that. Now, of the dust of the ground. The dust was collected from all parts of the world. Another interpretation is that it was collected from the future site of the altar, where it is said, an altar of earth thou shalt make unto me. And that's in Shemot 20 and 21. The Ephraim for earth and ground is the same in both verses, to symbolize the hope that the altar would make atonement for man's sins. So when we say he was created from the dust of the ground, as he formed him and fashioned him. Now, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. He made him of the nether and upper elements, the body from the nether, the dust, and the soul from the upper. He breathed into him a vivifying soul ready to receive the image of Yahuwah. Now you have to understand, when you read this and you look at this, you see where the Kemet have taken it and they said we are from the dust of the stars. Because they tried to basically make it as though we are celestial beings. Are you following?
Yes.
And they say, yes, we're from the arid or the earth, but also we have a portion of the stardust that comes and makes us up, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with that, because nowhere does it say that. But we understand that he breathed into him. And we know that Yahuwah is where? In the Shemaims.
That's right.
That's right.
So yes, we do get our life from the Shemaim, but we don't come from the stars. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now understand this. Because our body does contain minerals, you got to understand our minerals and those things come from the earth. You can find zinc in us. You can find magnesium in us. You can find what? Iron in us. You can find even copper in us.
That's right.
Because it's in the arid. Because we are what? Of the arid, of the earth.
That's right.
And so it's important that we see these things and that we understand that we are not celestial beings. This is what they tried to do with Yahush. And this is why so many people rejected him, because they said, well, he can't just be of fleshly origin. And watch this. He has to have an Abba in order for that to be substantiated. He has to have a physical Abba. No, he doesn't. Because now you're trying to bring science in to that what Yahuwah has purpose. Remember, he said, your thoughts are not my thoughts and your ways are definitely not my ways.
Right.
So it's important that we understand he doesn't need our approval of things he's done or things he will do, because it doesn't set or meet our criteria or our agenda.
Right.
And because we don't understand and can't figure out how can a person or how can a woman bring forth a child without the right amount of chromosomes. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because we, the scientists and the doctors have done their work and, done their research, and they pull these things out. So now we try to basically throw everything in there. You have to understand, Yahuwah created the doctors, the scientists, he created everything. So why does it they have to approve or basically sanction what he's done?
Exactly.
Not so. So it's important that we understand these things. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
From the arid, he created a heart, he created lungs, he created blood vessels. He created eyeballs, eye sockets. He created everything that you see yourself today being. He created that in the beginning. From the what? Arid. He had no heart surgeon there. He is a heart surgeon. He created exactly. He created the heart.
That's right.
It's a organ. Are you following me?
Yes.
And he created it from the same substance. From the same substance as he created this, he created our organs.
That's right.
So it's important that we understand. Don't ever try to basically figure him out and box him in.
That's right.
Because you can never do that. But it's important that we understand these things. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And breathe into his nostrils the breath of life. He made him of the nether and once again the upper. He gave him, so he's a living soul. The same phrase was used of animals and beasts. 1 and 30. It is specially mentioned here because man was made more living than they, in that he possesses knowledge and the power of speech. It is the reverse matter. Man at that stage was only a living soul. That is the same as the animals and beasts until he was created in the image and likeness of Yahuwah. The phrase implies that he was like the animals and that he could walk immediately. He was made and differed from children subsequently born. So we look at this, and once again, you have to understand that's why we are above everything else, because we have what? The power of speech. Animals can't talk. I don't care how much people want to say they can, they cannot.
That's right.
They cannot. We have speech. We know how to formulate words, sentences, phrases, documents, books. I have yet to see a dog write a book. I have yet to see a horse write a manual. They can't. But they can communicate. But they can't have speech. Now you have some that can even do sign language. That's a form of speech, but they cannot vocally express themselves as we do.
That's right.
So we can understand. Now you have to understand when he said, let us make man in our image. Let us make male and female. As we read this, and if you read it with an open heart and mind, you start looking, okay, he created us. But if you read the story, it says he created man, and out of man came what? Woman. We need a big question mark right there. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It has to be a big question mark there. Why? Because if I'm going to be in his image, that means he's going to create me in the same what? Manner.
That's right.
But if I come from the rib of a man, then I'm actually in the image of who? The man. Did he not say, let us make man in our what? Own image? Let us make what? Them? So that means somewhere along the line, there was something placed in this that made us believe, once again, and this is where I believe helpmate derived from. Because if we are created equals, that means I will be created from the same substance and in the same fashion. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
Because if not, then that means, now watch this now, I would be made from the man, and I would be actually in the image of what? The man, instead of in the image of Yahuwah. That meant my process would have taken two other steps.
That's right.
Y'all follow me?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
It's important that we see this. Why? Because you have to understand. Let's go back to the writing. He said, and he made them. The balance has to be there. A helpmeet is one to help because what? I'm not so much your equal, but I'm here only to come and help you in certain areas. But if I am your equal, that means I have to be created on the same plane and with the same stuff.
Right.
That's important for us to understand. Why is it important for us to understand? Because just like I heard an Ak make the analogy, we are not the weaker vessel, even though it has been recorded in history that the woman is the weaker vessel. If I am the weaker vessel, then how is it I can support and help him?
Right.
Can't do it. That also brings along also the question, if this is the case, then how is it that I am created from another substance and not the same substance that the man was created from if I am going to be his equal? Which throughout history has been damaged because people want to believe that women are of a lesser value and are of lesser importance, and that we are of a lesser substance. Man-made doctrine. Now watch this. This doesn't mean that now people are supposed to go on a tangent and start saying, oh, well, now we made from the same substance. I don't have to do this. No, understand something. If we are right here, that means we still are responsible for carrying out the plan of Yahuwah, but understanding that we are equals.
That's right.
Because without two equals, you're going to have an imbalance. A negative and a positive is going to always bring out a what? If you got a negative balance and you add something in there and it still ain't enough, what's going to bring?
Negative is not.
It's a negative. But if you have a positive and you bring a negative balance in, what does it give you? A positive balance. Because you start with the positive balance, but then if you bring a negative, in other words, you take from out of that. You can't take out of a negative. If you do it on the calculator, you'll see. If you have a negative balance and you're trying to bring out that what is positive, you're going to have a negative because you don't have enough. You can't take 10 out of 9, so you're going to have what? -1. Right. Meaning you didn't have enough. But if you have the positive there, you have $100 and you want to take out 99.9 or 100, guess what? You have enough.
Yes.
But when we have this to where the man is here and the woman is here, how is that equal and a balance? It's not. It's not. And if you notice and if you follow me with this, whenever children are born with a deficiency, the reason there's a deficiency is because what? There is an imbalance in one of the parents.
Yeah. All right.
There's an imbalance. So there cannot be healthy offspring. The reason the offspring are healthy is because there's a balance. It's a balance. Are you following me?
Yes.
It is a balance. Yes, this may be foreign to many, and it may not. Well, show me that. Give me the research. Show me where you got that. He created them. He created them. That means he created them both, and he brought them both forth. He brought them both forth. Now, once again, contrary to popular belief, you have to understand, in order for a family to be balanced, both parents have to be on the same understanding wave. Yeah. Both parents have to be in that same stall. If not, it's going to bring an imbalance. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. Many people don't want to accept that and believe it, but it is the truth. And this is how the enemy has come in and sabotaged many of mishpachos. Well, you the woman, you the weaker vessel, you can't do anything. So you got a lot of women sitting down being silent. You don't even seek Yahuwah enough to know who you are. You won't even seek him enough because you've been so beat and told you can't open your mouth. If you can't talk to anybody else, then how you going to talk to Yahuwah? Because he's the Abba. Right. So if you are restricted from dealing with men, watch this. Then how can you go to the Abba? Oh, right, you can't. They have to pray for you. Mm-hmm. That's a lie. Right. Because when it came down to her answering for what she did, she answered for herself.
Yes, that's right.
And she received the punishment, what? Herself. Yahuwah didn't say, Hadam, tell your wife this is what's going to happen to her. Right. She was judged for what she did, and guess what? And she answered Yahuwah, and he never told her, shut up and be quiet and let your husband speak for you. Right. That is man-made doctrine. She spoke up and she admitted, I was beguiled, and we will see this. And he gave her what was due her. But nowhere did he do this. Now you have to understand, if he didn't do that then, what is going to make him change from the very that got this ball rolling to getting now and say, well, woman, you the one started this. Don't you think when he was passing out the judgment, he would have said it then? Right. He would have said it. He didn't. Man-made. Man-made. It's important that we get out of that rabbinical mindset. Get out of that way of constantly thinking, well, it's the woman's fault. No, it wasn't the woman's fault. She did what she did, but it was both of their faults. Because both of them had the knowledge to know, don't eat of it. And they disobeyed. Are you following me?
Yes.
Yes. Important for us to understand this. Now, everything was set up and everything was flowing. Because everything was to be right. And so was the man to be right. He didn't create a perfect garden to put an imperfect relationship in there. Right. He created a people that were to develop and continue to move forward and be a perfect people in a perfect setting. Are y'all following me?
Yes. Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. All right, let us finish reading. Excuse me. Verse 14. Isn't it 14, John? 18. Okay, I'm sorry. 18. Mm-hmm.
Verse 19 reads, and from the ground Yahuwah formed every beast of the field and every bird of Shemayim, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the Shemayim, and to every beast of the field. But for the man there was not found a helper for him as his counterpart. So Yahuwah caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed the flesh in its place. And the rib which Yahuwah had taken from the man, he made into a woman, and had brought her to the man. And the man said, this is now bone of my bones, the flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman, because she was taken out of man. For this cause shall a man leave his Abba and his Ima, and cleave to his Isha, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife, yet they were not ashamed. Chapter 3.
Mhm.
Chapter 3. And the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field, which Yahuwah power had made, and said to the woman, Is it true that power has said, Do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, power has said, Do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die.
And it is so. Now, let's look at this conversation again. Let's look at this conversation. Once again, building from verse 25. Let me go back. Verse 27, I'm sorry. So power created man and his own image. In the image of power, he created him, male and female. He created what? Them. He created them. Now, if you notice between that verse and the verses that follow, there is a change in the whole creation story. There is a change, and many people don't accept it and won't see it because we have been so taught to believe that when Yahuwah created the man and the woman, that the woman was created from the man when it said that he created them. Meaning that when he created one, he created both of them. Now, I know many people are going to, not want to hear this and drop off because they feel like, well, you ain't going to tell me that because this is not what I learned. Yeah, but this is what we've learned in Christianity. Yes. We were told we were black folk. We were told we were just slaves. And all of us know that all of our ancestors were not slaves. And we know that all melanated people are not Hebrew. But they heaped us all up in one pile. And so now when something new comes to us, we are fretful and we're fearful because we're saying, but you can't show me that. They couldn't show us we were black either. So they had to falsify the information in order for it to be taken to be taken literally. But let's look at this conversation once again. 27 says, so power created man in his own image. In the image of power, he created him. Male and female created he them. Anytime there's a semicolon there, that means that what is stated afterwards is more important than that what is stated first. Are you following me?
Yes.
So he created male and female, created he them, meaning that is more important because it shows that he created them. Isn't it amazing that when he created the animals and he created the male animal and the female, he never took one bone from either one of them and created another being? He created a male and he created a female, the counterpart or the equal. He didn't put them to sleep. Somebody will say, but that's a special way. But you have to understand, let's watch this. Why? Because you have to understand what the enemy does. Now look at this. After this, it says, he goes on and he creates everything and he names everything. And then it says, but there was not a helpmeet found for him. How is it not when he said he created them? He created male and female. He already knew that he needed a counterpart. He needed an equal. See, this is where you have to see where that erroneous teaching comes into where now we become an afterthought because now we become the one to basically help. That's all we were created to do was help. That's a lie. He said, you're going to go. And he said, be fruitful and multiply. How are you going to tell them to do something and she's not there? Are you telling me something? Bake bread, but you have no flour.
Right.
You bake the bread and give it the instructions because it's there. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and have what? Dominion. Because she was there. There were orders given because they were there together. Read it. And stop interpreting it through the eyes of somebody else. Confabulation. To bring about a thought and a way that's not there. To make you believe a lie and hold it, and make it be your reality. So we've been taught to believe that this is our reality. Why? Because it's in paper. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
They changed the name of Yahuwah 7,000 times. So why would we believe they wouldn't change the creation story? They replaced Yahuwah with God. They replaced Yahush with Jesus. So why wouldn't they replace the creation story to bring the balance or to take away that balance? So we always doing this with each other. We will never be able to come together and do this and make the balance and bring the balance back into the earth. Are you following me?
Yes.
It can't happen. And once again, let's follow this. Now, this is what it says. Now watch this. Let's look at this again. We'll look at and it says in verse 15, and Yahuwah took the man, but it doesn't say Yahuwah took the man. I'm going to show you just what the writing said. And it said, the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. Now understand something. We know that that's not the name or the title. We know his name is Yahuwah. Now watch this. And every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of great and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. And Yahuwah said, it is not great that the man should be alone. But this is once again, he created them in the beginning. He already knew. So why in the world would we sit and say that Hadam is alone when he said, I'm creating them. I'm creating them, male and female created he them. And then he gives the command to be fruitful and multiply. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Does that reasoning make sense? It's a mixed narrative. Exactly. Because he's going to give the command to do something and nobody's there but him. But he's going to say to the animals, bring forth. And he says to the trees, bring forth of your own kind. Then he gives a command to Hadam, but Hawa is not there. No, come on now. Let's look at this. And let's examine the text again. And it said, it's not great that he should be alone. But if you said you were going to create them, and you had already said you created male and female, created he, them, created means past tense.
Right.
Created is an action word, but it's past tense, meaning they were already created.
Yes.
Right.
So if they're already created, why would he be lonely or alone? Are y'all following?
Yes.
Sabotage. To sabotage the writings, to keep the women in a position to always be subservient. Now understand what I'm saying. To a man. To be ridiculed and to be put in positions that are unorthodox and unhealthy. Now follow what I'm saying. It's a balance. Men have been treated bad just like women have been treated bad. But more so women. Why? Because the blunt of everything falls on the woman. Why? Because of what is put in writing. Because of what has been put in writing. Now let's continue to look at what it says. And out of the ground he formed the beasts of the field, every fowl of the air, and brought them unto the man to what he would call them. Now remember, in the beginning, these are already created. On the sixth day, are you hearing me? Everything was created.
Yes.
That's why he rested on the seventh, because everything was what? Finalized.
Mhm.
Now, we see this taking place. And it says he gave names to every beast of the field, but Adam, there was not found a helpmeet for him. How was there not found an equal for him? When in verse 27 of chapter 1, so power created man in his own image. In the image of power, he created him, male and female, he created them. It doesn't make any sense. That's just like trying to put a bicycle tire on a car. It won't fit, it won't work. It's not even of the same origin. It won't work. Now, as we continue to read, let me show you something else. Excuse me. And Yahuwah caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and clothed up the place with flesh instead thereof. And the rib which Yahuwah had taken from the man made he a woman. But if he created them, why would he make a woman out of the man? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
He created them, but now he's going to make a woman out of a rib from a man. Yes, it sounds, what is the word I'm trying to look for? It sounds, yeah, and it sounds politically correct for those that want it to be politically correct. Right. It sounds like that, and it's just, you still think, oh man, I was brought forth out of the man, and oh, he's just that, and I know who I am. I'm just a rib. Now follow that now. I'm just a rib. He was so powerful, or his rib was so powerful, that Yahuwah had to create a whole being from a rib. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That he's going to take a rib and create a woman, or make a woman when he created them.
Yeah.
He's going to make a woman from a rib when he created them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
From a rib. So you mean to tell me I don't have anything really original from me because that rib. So that means, now understand this, that means I can't function without a man because I was taken from a man. That is not right. That's not right. You may not like it. You may want to say I'm coming with an erroneous doctrine, but we've been reading erroneous doctrines all of our lives.
Yes.
He created them, and then he's going to make a woman from a rib. That there was no material, because we want to say that the woman was inside of the man all the time. He created them. He made them separately. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now let me show you what else. And we tend to always want to add and say, well, this is what happened. And there's nothing to substantiate that. But as we read, you can see there's a difference here because something is added and something is missing. And it says, now look, he made he a woman and brought her unto the man. And now if he understand, he takes her, makes her in a whole different other place. Then he presents her back to him. Now watch what he says. And the man said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Not this woman is from Abba Yahuwah. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, and the man said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. But in verse 27, it says he created them in the image of himself. Contradiction. Exactly. How can I be in the image of the Abba if I'm made from the man? I'm not in the image of the Abba if I'm created from the man. I'm in the image of the man.
That's right.
Now watch this when it goes on to read. Therefore shall a man leave his Abba and his Ema and shall cleave unto his Isha, and they shall be one flesh. First of all, Ema and Papa were nowhere around. Yahuwah created them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You have to remember, Moshe is the one that wrote Bereshit. Now let me show you something. There were many of those that wanted to walk and operate as Moshe did, which now allows us to understand and believe that many of them tried to and successfully did it become his voice. Because you have to understand, this does not set and fit that right there. You're going to tell me that Hadam, who had no knowledge of an Ema, only the knowledge of Abba Yahuwah, is going to say now a man has to leave his family and cleave to his Isha. Are y'all following me? And there was nowhere to go yet. Right. Where you going to go? You're home. You're already there. That's why he created you there. That's your home. You ought to be the first parents. But you talking about leaving. Are y'all following this? Mm-hmm. Now watch this. And they shall be one flesh. They were already one when he created them. And they were both naked, the man and his Isha, and were not ashamed. Of course they weren't ashamed because they were there together. Are you following me? Yes. We're created at the same time. Why would we be? Very important. Now we go into chapter 3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahuwah had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath Yahuwah said, You shall not eat of any tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, Of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. How did she know that if she wasn't there when the command was given?
Right. Because she just quoted it. So.
She was right there, exactly. Now, I always used to think, well, she was in it, but you have to understand something. That's the way it was taught. But if you're inside, you're unconscious, because you can't be conscious and in somebody, because now you be two people in one. That's schizophrenic.
Yes.
That's schizophrenic. Because now you have two operating forces in one physical body. One time you're what? A Hawa, the next time you're Hadam? No. She was given the same instructions as Hadam. And that's why she could quote it back to the enemy, to the serpent. Not because he taught her, but because she got the same instructions. And you have to understand, her answer was, he what? Beguiled me. Meaning that he was able to take the information that I was supposed to guard. Remember, excuse me, when the writings tells us in Bereshit to guard the commands of Abba Yahuwah, it even tells us in Yehukin and Aleph 5 that this is how we know that we are hopping by what? Guarding his commands. Yeah. She didn't guard the instructions, and that's how she was beguiled. It had nothing to do with her gender. It had everything to do with her listening and being obedient. But we take it and make it a gender thing. Help us, Abba Yahuwah. Now she quotes him, and we always would ask, why didn't Hadam jump in and say something? Why would he? He saw she was his equal. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
She had the same instructions. Do we really believe that Yahuwah will put a woman or a baby, an infant, in a situation to be beguiled? Exactly. That meant when he said tend the garden, he already knew who was out there, but he gave them both the instructions. And it was for both of them to follow them and adhere to it. Now listen what it says. But the fruit of the tree, which is in the midst of the garden, Yahuwah had said, you shall not eat of it. Now watch what he said. Look what he said. Neither shall you touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. See, this is the problem. When you start adding stuff, somebody will ask, well, why would she add that? Maybe that was just her reasoning. She's not stupid. Right. She has a free mind. She has an ability to think. She's not a child. She's not an infant. You know, when you're dealing in conversation with somebody, and you have to understand from the images we see that the serpent was right there at the tree. So if the serpent is touching the tree and you trying to basically go toe to toe with something and you say, neither are we to touch it. In other words, the thought or the rebuttal of the conversation is you're touching it and we're not supposed to. Are y'all following me? Yeah. So now the question comes in is what made her mindset change with it? Well, according to some theologians, is that the serpent pushed her and she touched it. And so by her not dying when she touched it, gave her some type of resolve in her disobedience that maybe this is something we could use to make us better. Because you got to understand, she had choices and she had an obligation to follow Yahuwah just like he did. Are y'all following me? Yes. And so, listen what it says. And so, it says, and ye shall surely not eat, for Yahuwah have not For Yahuwah doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open and you shall be as Yahuwah, knowing great and evil. Now you have to understand something. Why would he have given her that? And why would he have even brought that into the conversation? Because he understood both of them were equal. People want to say, well, he went to her because she was the lesser. No, she was doing her responsibility, tending the garden. While everybody want to believe she's supposed to be somewhere held up in a cave or in a lean-to, where she's supposed to be there, tending and picking the greens and waiting for him to come in. Get out of that. That all that old Khazar mentality. Held up in a cave and held up somewhere. You just sitting there waiting. You're going to tell me he's going to put her in a place where he's commanded the man to work and she do nothing but sit there? But the birds of the field and the animals of the sea have to procreate and have to do work and do whatever, but she's going to be able to sit in there and do nothing? Let's wake up. That's a lie. She had a responsibility too. And it just so happened that this was her lot or her passing. You start thinking, why was she over there? Because evidently in her going to tend to the other trees, she kept looking and kept noticing something over there. And you got to understand something. When you nosy and when you were just doing something, like I said, we could assume all day long why she was over there. We know she was over there, but she had no business, and so was he over there. And he had no right, neither one of them, but they were there. Was it because they had to tend to it? Now you have to understand, he said, don't eat it. You go to restaurants, you cook food, don't eat the food, you cook it. Does that mean that in their tending to it, they were not supposed to touch it? Does that mean they were not to tend to it? We could assume all day long, but we do know in the end, they ended up messing up because of their disobedience. Right. Had nothing to do with her gender or her just being the weaker vessel. It had everything to do with disobedience. Right. Disobedience has no gender. Now look at what she says in verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was great for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and she gave also unto her husband with her. He was with her. Now everybody wants to say, well, when a woman leaves, that's when it messes up. No. Because he could have denied it. He could have said no. But they both were sitting there listening to the conversation, and he himself got mystified and got brought into that too. Because he saw her eat it, and then he partook. Once again, this is where our thinking has to change, and we have to look at them being both adults, both with an understanding of instructions, and failed to comply. They failed to comply. Why? Because they wanted to eat of it. Just that simple. You don't have to add anything to it. Just read it and accept it for what it is. They both ate. And it wasn't because she was usurping his authority. She was tending the garden just like he was. Right. And she saw it to be desirable. Why? Because when the serpent said unto her, ye shall not surely die, for Yahuwah doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes, plural, meaning just not her two eyes, because you know when somebody say your eye or your eyes, we know it's talking about your, but you got to understand there were 4 eyeballs there, not just 2. Right. So he was also directing the conversation to Hadam. For he knows that your eyes shall be open and you shall be as him, knowing great and evil. They already knew, but they chose to follow after evil. Are y'all following me? Yes. Because the moment you are told to do something against the instructions that are given to you, you've already fallen into listening to evil. And it goes on. And when the woman saw that the tree was great for food, he's thinking, not only did she see it great for food, but she brought the lie, it'll make me wise. You already wise. He just gonna take from you what you're too simple to understand that you have. And not mean because they didn't have the understanding, but because they were beguiled. Now watch this. And that tree was to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat. And then she gave to her Ish. And he did eat. And watch this. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. It didn't say that only one set of eyes were open. Both of their eyes were open, meaning that they what? They had equal part in it, and that they both understood what they had done at that moment. It wasn't his eyes open, then her eyes. No, at that moment, both of their eyes were open because it was a done deal.
Right.
Why? Because they were one. And they realized they were naked. So you start to ask the question, well, if in the beginning he told them to be fruitful and multiply, you can't do that with clothes on. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
You have to understand that nakedness, I don't believe, means that they physically could see their genders because they understood their gender. I believe that nakedness is now they've been stripped of what they had.
That's great.
They were stripped of knowing the righteousness of Yahuwah. Now they realize we have lost what we had because we've eaten of this which we were forbidden to eat of. That's the nakedness that was there. Because now the absence of his presence, the absence of knowing, he said, because when you eat of this, what did he tell me? He said, don't eat of that. Because now when you eat, you're going to see things in a way that you shouldn't. So now all this is real. And they are ashamed because now they realize what we've just done. We disobeyed the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves girdles. Now you have to understand once again, whenever you do something and you know you step out of truth, I don't care how much clothing you have on, you just know, oh man, I done messed up. I just feel so dirty. I just feel so open. Because literally we are. And you have to understand, there's more to their genitals being covered up here. They were trying to cover up what they had done because they realized they had just stepped into that evil position. This is what is so important for us to understand.
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. Now watch what it says. After they had done that, and they sewed the fig leaves and made themselves girdles, and they heard the voice of Yahuwah walking in the garden toward the cool of the young. And the man and his ish hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah amongst the trees of the garden. Now, if it was only the man, then how is it that she could hear and not have to use his ears? That means she had been talking with him too.
That's right.
And it just didn't come just because they ate, but she was there when they were talking because she was present. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, you have to understand, when Yahuwah addresses Yahshua, he addresses us as what? One. Does that mean that when he addresses us as one, he's only talking to one? No, he's talking to all of us, and that's understood.
Right.
So he doesn't go Gad, Dan. Are you hearing me?
Right.
Benjamin, Luwite. He doesn't have to do that. He understands when he says Yahshua, all of our ears perk, and we go into attention because we're listening.
That's right.
Same way. It's important you understand because he saw them as one. Why see them divided? You're going to really see now the division. You're really going to see the separation, the connection being broken from their oneness. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is where, once again, we have to be recovered from because there was a brokenness that took place. And it just didn't happen with them. It happened with our people. That's how come you see the division. And it starts with the Ish and the Isha and the Isha and the Ish. Matriarchs and patriarchs. The conductors of the home. It's not just one, it's two. Because we are both the conductors of the home. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now that's what it says. And Yahuwah called unto the man and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. Now you have to understand, when he called unto him, he didn't call just unto one. He called to both of them. To both of them. And you have to understand, when Yahuwah asked the question, it wasn't because he didn't know. He already knew what had happened. He never broke his stride. He never ran to the garden. He continued to do what he did. Because you ought to know, he knows everything from the end at the beginning. So he already knew. Now watch what goes on to say. And Yahuwah said unto the woman, what is this thou hast done? Now, when you read this, the first thing we think about is he's standing up there like a disgruntled, angry father. What is this you have done? Now, mind you, he asked Hadam, how do you know this is about? Did you eat? But then he's going to turn around and he's going to put the emphasis on the woman.
Right.
But when you read it in this manner, it makes you believe that now he's angry with her because of what Hadam did. When they both ate. Now watch what it says. But watch what she says. The woman whom thou gavest me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And Yahuwah said unto the woman, what is this thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And Yahuwah said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, cursed art thou from among all cattle, and from among all beasts of the field. Upon the belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. If you know, he didn't say creeping things, swarming things. He said cattle, and among all beasts of the field. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. And they shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise their heel. And he says, now watch this. He says unto the woman, after he speaks to the serpent, because you have to understand, at least she had enough of sense to admit, I was beguiled. There is nothing else I can say. The serpent beguiled, and I did eat. Now watch what it says. And it says here, unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy pain and thy travail. Travailing is one of the things, no matter what, a woman is going to do in childbearing. It is a known medical fact that a woman's pelvis bones have to separate in order for the baby to come through the birth canal. They separate and then they come back together, and you feel all of it. In pain thou shalt bring forth children. Now watch this. The reason the pain is going to last longer is because you travail with your children at times. In other words, you want to see your children do better. You want to see them go on and be great people. You want to see them walk in truth. All the time, that does not happen.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That doesn't happen. And so he tells her, because you got to remember, she loses her what? Her second oldest son. So she started feeling it immediately. That was her punishment. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. You know why? Look at what he said. It is the woman you gave to me. And you have to look when he said, your desire shall be to thy husband. Her desire was to him. Now you can understand it and look at it in this term. I'm the reason why he has lost. So now I'm going to be with him because now I got to do what I was supposed to do before we ate. And that's to be his equal. Are you hearing me? And to be there to support him and do whatever. Now watch what he said, and he shall rule over thee. He didn't say the men after and the generations that followed was going to rule over their issues. That was for them. Are you following me?
Yes.
That was for them. Now watch what he said. And unto Hadam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy Isha, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and toil shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. He didn't say he wasn't going to eat of it. He said, but now you're going to toil for it.
Right.
Just like a woman travails, he's going to work for it. Whereas he didn't have to work hard for it, now he's going to understand what working hard means. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, eat bread till thou return unto the ground. For out of it was thou taken. Now, once again, look what he said. Now, for people that want to say vegan is the way, he said, you're going to eat of the herb. How do you know we weren't supposed to eat meat in the beginning? It doesn't say that. But watch what he says again. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. That's under his punishment. That's under his punishment. In the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. That ain't no Baruch. He said you're going to eat the herb of the field. That means if he's telling him this is what it's going to be, that means something was taken away.
Okay.
Are you following me? People don't like it, but it's the truth. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And the man called his Ish's name, which many say Eve, but it's a hollow. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, because she was the Eve of all living, and Yahuwah made for Hadam and for his Isha garments of skins and clothed them. Now, once again, it is important that we understand what was said. He gave him, and he told the woman, he said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, as he tells the serpent, and between thy seed and her seed. They shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise their heel. They, that's what? Plural. Plural. That's plural. Unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy pain and thy travail. In pain thou shalt bring forth children. Seed. Who is the seed carrier? The man. The man carries the seed. The woman carries the egg. So are you following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand what is being said here. This is referring to a whole different thing, which many people believe that this is talking about Yahush. They is plural. I believe that Yahush is included in this. But if you really want to find out concerning Yahush, you have to read on when we start seeing the children come forth. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is where you begin to see the more of an introduction and more of that being spoken of concerning Yahush. But they is plural. Are you following me?
Yes.
Seed, thy seed, they. This is what he said. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. They shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise their heel. That's plural. That's not singular. Unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy pain and thy travail. In pain thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Because her desire, now watch this, if her desire would have been to Yahuwah, he couldn't have reigned over her. He couldn't have ruled over her. So for everybody want to believe that lie that a man is going to rule over you. Now understand what I mean by that. Is that means you're out of order. That's a curse. That's punishment. That is not a Baruch. To rule over somebody means that now they're in a position to be subservient to you. And because basically she accepted that, she went with it because he already said, you're going to follow your husband. Her desire. Now, what if her desire was for Yahuwah? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
He just showed her what was in her heart. You're gonna follow him. And she did. She followed him. And what? He ruled over her. You see it through the children. You see this through the children. And so it's important that we understand it. And you see all these things that happen. And Yahuwah said, behold, the man is become as one of us. Was it just the man that had become one of them? They had become
Mankind, that's right.
like them. And so it's important that we understand. And when it's always singled out, it always makes you believe that it's only talking about one person, which it is not. To know great and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Now, he once again, you continue to see how it constantly puts it back in the man's hand. The man wasn't the one who took forth of the fruit. It was his issue who did it.
Right.
So that was geared towards both of them, not just one of them.
Right.
But if you read it, you would only believe that it's speaking of one person, and that's the man. Are you following me?
Yes.
Therefore, verse 23, Yahuwah sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. Now, when you look at this, it said it sent him forth. But remember, he already told Ahawa, your desire is going to be to your husband. And what did she do when he left? She walked right on out there with him. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Her desire was to be with him. So while he was being put out, guess what? She went right on with it. Because it never said he put her out.
Right.
That's not altering it and that's not twisting it.
That's what it says.
That's just what it says. Her desire was to be with him. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim and the flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Now you have to understand, drove them out. To drive somebody out means they ain't ready to go. That means there was some resistance, right?
Yes.
I don't want to go. Why are you going to put me out? Don't put me out. Why would you have to put a flaming sword there? That means resistance. That means that he was going to try to come back and keep on doing till he got to that tree. So there had to be some safeguards put up.
Right.
Now you have to understand, it wasn't like, well, we're going to leave and that's it. Okay, if I'm going to leave out of here, I'm going to live forever. I'm going to put my hand to something else. Are you following me?
Yes.
So this is one of the things. It's like I can see, y'all remember when we saw that one about and the what is it with Rigby and Mordecai, the regular show. Remember when he got in his mind all the numbers, and when he was going to school to try to get his diploma, and all the numbers and stuff was going through his head, and and he kept trying to do certain things, and every time he was in, you can almost see Hadam's mentality. If I'm going to be put out of here, you're going to have to drive me out of here. Because I understand, and if I have this understanding, I want to live with it forever. You don't put those type of safeguards out when somebody is leaving willingly. That means there was some resistance.
Right.
And that meant that they were going to keep coming and coming until he accomplished what he set out to do. So Yahuwah said, no, you come through there, you really going to get tore up. And as we continue to read, we will see Hadam became what? Worse and worse. Because you have to understand the knowledge that he had now, that he already had, plus that what he got now is corrupted, and he just continues to expand and continue to do. It is so much stuff that we will probably never know until Yahuwah himself tells us what Hadam did.
That's right.
But we know that a lot of stuff that got the ball, he was the orchestrator of getting a lot of things started before the flood. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand these things. And so to keep them out and to keep the way to the tree of life, he put that in place. Many theologians said that when this was done, the reason it was put there is because there were certain writings that were found that said they were constantly trying to get back in to get to the tree of life. And this was one of the last results. I believe it was done at that time. Because if you would be willingly to stand up there and be disobedient, then you would be willing to be disobedient at that time. So to drive them out, to drive something means you push them out. He had to push him out. And in pushing him out, she went with him. Also, you have to understand, a lot of time, and this is when you see in relationships, even unto this young, that when most of the time, but not all the time, when men will leave a church, just depending on the connection or anything, if he has a issue that's committed, it ain't got to be nothing wrong with it. But if he leaves, she's gonna go. She's gonna go, because wherever he goes, she's gonna be right there, and she can know he's wrong. But if he leaves, she's gonna be right there with him, and she will just suffer the blunt of it because she wants to be there, and he will rule over her. And you see that today. This is why these sisters be jumping up, always trying to correct another sister that's walking in truth and free. I'm free. My ish is free. We ain't bound. Ain't no chains on me. Are you following me? So we have no issues. We don't play these games. Well, you can't address a man. You can't address a woman. Who said? You let your husband rule you. Yahuwah rules this house.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Yes, my ish is the breadwinner. He is, and he is the head of his house. But Yahuwah rules this house. He rules the house. Because that didn't come into play until what? After the fall. But it was for Hadam and Ahawa. He didn't say later on there will be in your generations. That's what people read and then say, hey, this is what we are supposed to do. No, we're not. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And the reason why he would rule over her, because she left the rulership and authority of Yahuwah behind. Yahuwah rules my life. And because he rules my life and he rules my husband's life, there's no reason for my husband to rule over me. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because we're both ruled by Yahuwah through Yahushua HaMashiach. Does that minimize him as a man? Absolutely not. It makes him a man. Because if you have to be a man to rule over somebody, you're not a real man. You're not a man. You need something to rule. Rule your own self. And even then, you're still going to be out of order, because that's what got Adam in trouble, because he began to rule over his own self. So it's important that we see this and we understand the recovery part of our lives. We have to recover what was broken and what was lost. And that is the unity of the Mishpachah, beginning with the Ish and the Isha. Because if there is no unity, where is the structure and the framework? Can't see it. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't want it. Because the first thing people say, well, show me. I showed you in the writings. I showed you. And in order for me to show it to you in writing, I got to break into the Vatican. We got to get into the Vatican and get all the information that is hidden and taken from us. Because it is there. This is why when you look at it, you have those that out there that say, there's no reason for me. Yahuwah rules our home. Why am I going to rule my wife? I can't get nothing from her ruling over her. But if we work together, we can make things happen. You know, that's like just like playing tug of war. Or you dragging somebody up the road somewhere. Like I say, when we study, we have to study beyond what we've already been taught. I heard a person get the instructions one time. When you go in with your heart and mind clear. Don't go in already assuming that you already know what's going to be. Go in with a fresh mindset. So when you go in and start reading, you won't be reading from the lenses of that what you already knew. Because if you do, all you're doing is just reading and rehearsing and repeating the same thing over and over again. Excuse me, which we can't afford to do. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. All right. Let us read. Let us go into chapter 4 and let us read. Let's read. Let's do 6 verses apiece. 7. Let's do 7 verses apiece.
And it is so.
And this.
Bereshit chapter 4, verses 1 through 6.
7, Mr. 7.
Okay, 1 through 7. And Adam knew Hawa, his Isha, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahuwah. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahuwah. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Yahuwah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And Yahuwah said unto Cain, Why are you wroth? And why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, shall you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lies at the door. And unto you shall be his desire, and you shall rule over him. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, I'm looking at, when we look at verse 1, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3 renderings of this. And one rendering, and I'm going to read this one first, in chapter 4, verse 1, in the Abrahamic covenant, and it says, and Hadam knew Hava, his Isha, and she conceived and bare Quayan, and said, I have gotten a man, Yahuwah. That's one rendering. The next rendering, and that comes from the Abrahamic covenant writings, comes from the Torah portions. It is the English and Hebrew rendering. And it says, and the man knew Ahawa, his Isha, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gotten a man with the help of Yahuwah. Now, this rendering, and I want to read this, it says, in the new, I have gotten a man, it says, had known before he was expelled from Eden. So, according to this rendering, and I'm going to read the other one, she had already conceived before they were taken out. So the concept that they were ignorant to their purpose is not true.
That's right.
So when you hear about her in the 4th chapter bringing forth, that lets you know when they were expelled, she was already pregnant from the garden. Now, this rendering says one thing, this rendering says another. And with the help of Yahuwah, he alone created us, but the creation of this child, the 3 of us were partners. This child shall be the possession of Yahuwah, that when we die, he may serve him. So you have to understand, there's these different renderings. And we can get so misconstrued with the renderings and the interpretations of what's being said that now we be all over the place. Now, as we read, it says that they, and when we read it, let's go back, it was at chapter 3, right? When he pronounces this, let's go back to chapter 3 real quick, so I can show you. Chapter 3. Now, once again, one rendering says they, and another rendering says it, singular. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, in this one, it says in verse 15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your Zerah seed and her Zerah seed. It shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Now, once again, let's look at Shaitan's seed are those who are unsaved or unregenerated, right?
Yes.
Now, when you look at Shaitan, your seed, Shaitan's followers, her seed speaks of the virgin birth of the Mashiach, of Yahshua, and the collective group, the ancestors of Yahush, or his physical brethren who are the Ibram from both houses. So we understand, once again, this is still alluding to they, meaning us. Are you following me? and not Yahush alone. They is plural. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now that is what it said, and you shall bruise his heel. Rabbi Shaul also tells us the same thing in the book of Romaiah, chapter 16 and 20, that the power of Shalom will crush Shaitan. Now the Greek word used here is sotribo, which means literally to crush. The Ibram word shuf not only means to bruise, but also to crush. Yahush will crush Shaitan. The Ibram word shuf is used, and he, Shaitan, will injure, crush Yahush, that is, to sacrifice him on the tree or on the executioner's stake. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now you have to understand also that means that those of us that follow would also follow under that, because we are part of the what? They. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We are a part of the they group because we are walking in truth. We are part of the seed that will crush what? The head of Shaitan. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, that comes from that rendering. Now, let's finish over here. When it says in verse 1, now that's the description that is given concerning Quayan, which is Cain. When she says, let me go back to it. Let me go back to chapter 4. Excuse me. When it is said, and Hadam knew Chaba, his Isha, and she conceived and bare Quayan, and said, I have gotten a man, Yahuwah. Once again, interpretation. One says she has gotten a man, Yahuwah, which many believe that he was supposed to be this supernatural being. Are you hearing me? And that she thought that this would be Yahush, the one that would basically destroy Shaitan. Okay, and that's why many people call him. They said that that's what she meant when she said a man, Yahuwah. But this rendering says that she got the help of Yahuwah. Now, why would we say that she got the help? Why would it be that it was rendered she got the help from the help of Yahuwah? And I have gotten a man with the help of Yahuwah. Now, once again, and had known before he was expelled. So he knew him before he was expelled, and they brought forth the son. With the help, he alone created us. And once again, with the help of Yahuwah, this rendering allows us to truly see that this was one of those situations that you look at. In other words, well, with this, now we can begin afresh and start serving him in the right manner. Are you following me?
Yes.
And starting and beginning with him to bring restoration, because he's going to serve and do right. Okay? Now, so when we go on, he will stand up and do what we couldn't do, even though we're outside of the garden. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Two sons, Cain and Abel, to imply that man holds on the earth, deriving Cain from Kenyan, possession, but vanity, Hebel. She did not desire pessimism explicit. So scripture does not give the interpretation of Abel as it does of Cain or Quayan. The accusation out that the accusative signs et before the words. Cain, his brother, and Abel are extensions implying that twin sisters were born with them. You hear that? That twin sisters were born with them. I've never heard that before, but it's a time to hear everything, right? You hear me? But that twin sisters were born with them. So now listen. Now we're gonna read it. We read it from here, and let me go back to here, and we read in verse 2. And she again gave birth to his brother Hebel, and Hebel was a keeper of sheep, but Quayan was a tiller of the ground. Now, it keeps it going, almost like you say that they were twins. Are you following me?
Yeah.
because of the time that it kind of shows that they were born. Almost like she gave birth, then immediately comes another child from the womb. Are you following me?
Yes.
Yes. Now, he was a keeper of sheep. He refrained from working the ground because it had been cursed. That's one rendering. Now, but Quayam was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time, it came to pass that Quayam brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahuwah. Now, that makes us ask the question, why would he till the ground when, think about it, the ground was cursed? Hadam, who Yahuwah said, it's going to only yield to you thistles and thorns, and you're going to eat the herb of the field. So you would look and you ask the question, why would you go in and take that and try to present from a cursed ground fruits and vegetables? Many of us have said, well, it was his attitude. But Yahuwah doesn't want anything cursed. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So this is another thing to cause us to question and think about, instead of always saying, well, he was jealous of Habel. It doesn't say that. It says afterwards we see the difference. We start seeing the difference there.
Mm-hmm.
But before then, we don't see that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So once again, and in the process of time, it came to pass that Quayam brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahuwah. Now it says that here too, and let's look at what it says. A keeper of sheep, once again, he refrained from working the ground because it had been cursed. The fruit of the inferior produce, Yahuwah had respect. Fire descended from Shemayim and consumed it. This is what caused Quayam to be jealous. But you have to want to understand why it was rejected. All we have to do is go back in chapter 3 and see where it said, for your sake, the ground is what? Cursed. So why would you try to present a cursed offering to the Abba?
Right.
Almost as if, I'm going to make it work and you're going to accept it because this is what we were supposed to do anyway. So why not accept it? I made it right. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We just going to force it on it. And it wasn't accepted. So with that thought right there, I want you to take that thought, and we're going to, at this time, we're going to take a break, and we're going to give you time to ruminate, digest it some more, and digest it some more. And we're going to come back at 7. And we're going to finish, because we still have, I won't say a lot more, but we still have a decent amount to cover. And I'm excited about what we're going to cover on this Yom concerning the writings. So I encourage you to come back and be with us at 7:15. Once again, enjoy your time of rest and enjoy your lunch as we are preparing to take a time to eat, and then we're going to come back at 7:15. I pray you all come back and join us for the conclusion of this matter, which does not mean the ending, but will bring us to a place of better understanding of those things that we have erroneously been taught for generations after generations.
Right.
I want you to remember that we are hobby. We're praying with you and we're praying for you. Keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong. I am Aliyah Yashara, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom, Hebraic Belief Ministries. And I want you to remember, here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom, Hebraic Belief Ministries, this is the place where
The Torah does the body excellent.
Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.